There are a host of deadlift options out there, from conventional deadlifts to sumos to the trap bar to the Romanian, but one very kind of obscure and old school deadlift option out there is something called the stiff leg deadlift. Now, this is not a deadlift that many people are familiar with, and it is not a deadlift that you necessarily need to do, but if you really want to isolate your hamstrings and build some resiliency in your lower back, this is a great and very underrated option that you can go to. Now, the stiff leg deadlift is going to seem a lot like your standard conventional deadlift. There are only a couple subtle differences, but just by making these adjustments, when we go over to the barbell, we're able to hit our hamstrings a little bit more. We're going to take our quads out of action a little bit, and we are going to have to go lighter on this. This is not going to be a heavyweight move. This is also not a beginner move, but it's a really great way to feel your hamstrings to stay focused. So let's get into it. So the thing you want to understand before you start doing the stiff-legged deadlift is that, contrary to its name, we're not actually going to lift with completely straight or stiff legs. Instead, it's just going to be about changing the intent from what we do for a conventional deadlift. When we set up for this, it's going to seem very similar to a conventional deadlift, but with my standard deadlift, I'm going to get a good amount of knee bend. I'm thinking push my butt back, but then I'm also thinking, and you'll see a lot of people do this as they get heavier, they'll get a little bit of height, and then I'm gonna lower down and I'm gonna get into a position that has my hips lower than my shoulders. It's a nice safe position to lift from, and that's also going to involve some knee bend. With the stiff leg deadlift, I'm gonna take that knee bend out. I'm going to very intentionally take as much of that knee bend out as possible, and what that's going to do, my legs are not going to be completely straight, but as I take that knee bend out, I'm gonna push my butt back to make sure that I'm still getting this through my hips. That's gonna result in a torso position that's almost parallel to the ground. My shoulders are almost in line with my hips. Now, instantly, this is going to do a couple things. One, because my knees are straighter, when we're doing our standard conventional deadlift, I'm actually able to get a little bit of quad engagement from this position because I have that knee bend. So as I stand up from my conventional deadlift, my quads are able to help me a little bit. That's going to become very critical during conventional deadlifts as I get to my heavier weights. Because my knees are already pretty close to straight on this stiff leg deadlift, we're taking out that quad engagement. Two, we're gonna wind up with this position, because we're in this closer to tabletop position, our back, our lower back, is a little bit more of a lever. It's not as low, it's not necessarily as safe. This is why you're gonna wanna use lighter load on this move. And this is also why it's going to help build a little bit of lower back resiliency, because your lower back is gonna be a little bit more of a lever on this. The third thing that happens with this deadlift is, because my hamstrings aren't as contracted, when my knees are bent, my hamstrings are incredibly contracted, but we're working our hamstrings from this lengthened position where they're lengthened at the hip and they're also lengthened at the knee, and that's placing our hamstrings at a little bit more of a disadvantage. It's gonna push them to work that much harder to help us straighten up on this deadlift. So those are the differences in the stiff leg deadlift from the conventional deadlift. Once you get past those and once you understand those, then you understand why this is such a great hamstring exercise and why it's going to help your lower back resiliency. When we set up, it's very similar to our standard deadlift. So I'm going to come up to the bar. I'm thinking of making sure that I can see my toes on the other side of the bar. I'm going to keep this bar close to my shins. I'm going to lower down to that bar, grasp it with an overhand grip. The one thing I am going to do, because it is a little bit more of a tabletop position, I'm not going to pull myself down to the bar as aggressively, and I'm not going to squeeze my shoulder blades as much. So I'm going to be a little bit longer through my shoulders. And then I'm working, you want to think about trying to maintain as straight a knee as possible, but you'll notice I still have a pretty good bend in there, because that's going to be natural. And then all we're going to do, we're going to really brace through our abs. We're going to brace through our lower back. This move winds up hitting your abs, your lower back, your glutes, and your hamstrings. And then all we're going to do is we're going to pick up the bar. As we lower, think of doing this as an RDL. This is where you can really think very much about the stiff leg portion of things. You want to push your butt back. Your weight's going to wind up in your heels. Lower down, you get a really good hamstring contraction out of that. Really good hamstring stretch rather out of that. And then we go right back up. So I'm thinking really push my butt back, and you've got to really focus on that Because if you don't focus on pushing your butt back, then your lower back is going to start to round. Then we've taken emphasis off of our hamstring, and then we're not building lower back resiliency, just putting our lower back in a not great position. Just from doing those couple reps, my hamstrings already feel lit up because we do get that great focus on the hamstrings, and because we're pushing our butt back while keeping our knees straight. This does not wind up being a move that you can load a ton of weight on, and it's not meant to be the main deadlift in your routine. You're still going to want to do your conventional deadlifts, still build in the Romanian deadlift, still hit the trap bar. This is an exercise that is specifically designed to attack your hamstrings, maintain focus on your hamstrings, and help with a little bit of that lower back resiliency. Because of that, this is not a deadlift that anybody needs to do. It's focused on the hamstring isolation, but there are better hamstring exercises out there. There are leg curls, there are Nordic curls. Even your standard deadlift is going to, for most people, hit and challenge enough of your hamstrings to get the development you want and to bulletproof your hamstrings enough. This is more of, I like to think of it as an emergency hamstring exercise. If you are in a situation and you only have barbells or you only have dumbbells and you don't have access to any of the other tools that can train your hamstrings, then maybe you're gonna go to the stiff leg deadlift. That way you can get that hamstring engagement, feel your hamstrings move, and that's why we're gonna use the stiff leg deadlift. The other person who's gonna use the stiff leg deadlift is the person who really can't feel their hamstrings. One of the challenges when we're doing deadlifts is very often it winds up glute intensive, and as we said, because we're getting some knee bend, your quads wind up helping a lot, and a lot of times that for certain people, you might not be able to get great hamstring engagement on the standard deadlift, and you have to teach yourself how to feel that stretch in your hamstrings. This is a great option because our other deadlifts are gonna have a little bit more knee bend. The one thing you're not gonna do with this deadlift is go heavy. The weight I have here is probably pretty close to what I'm gonna train this at because it is putting my lower back in that higher position that can become very compromised, and because I really wanna take my time and I wanna really feel my hamstrings. So you wanna think about your load as about half your standard deadlift load, if not even a little bit less than that, and think of keeping this a little bit of a high rep exercise. Aim for 3 to 4 sets of 8 to 10 reps. You're really taking your time on every single rep, really being mindful to push your butt back, brace through your core, and fight to keep those knees straight. That winds up being the stiff leg deadlift, and no, you don't need to do it, but it is a good way to feel your hamstrings. If you're struggling to get that feeling, keep this one in mind, and if you're ever in a situation where you only have barbells, this is your go-to hamstring exercise.